Welcome to Hooked on Guitar, the show that teaches you how to play guitar at home by playing along with me. I'm Dan Rao from Gunner Guitar Studies in Kitchener, and this is episode number 16. In this show, we're going to learn how to slide into notes, how to do a proper vibrato, and also how to use double stops, and where you can put them in the scales we have learned so far. You may want to keep a pen or a pencil handy. At the end of tonight's show, an address will be shown where you may write in and receive a transcript in lesson form that will help with any questions you may have regarding the show and will be a good reference for future practicing. Let's begin as always by tuning, so what you play at home sounds like what I'm playing here, a low E or 6th string. And I am again down a semitone. This is an E flat note. And the A or 6th string, 5th string, sorry. And the D or 4th string. And the G or 3rd string. The B or 2nd string, and the E or 1st string. And let's begin by learning how to play vibratos properly. Now, the vibrato is the wavering effect sounded by rapidly bending and releasing a string or a note. This technique sounds good on sustained or held notes. For instance, if I was going to play an A minor pentatonic and I was going to go up, just play up the scale, play to this note here and then end on the root here, rather than just go, I could vibrato both notes, give it a nice interesting sound. Now, to pivot, I like to use what's called the, to vibrato, I like to use what's called the pivot method. And what that is you kind of anchor your hand here against the bottom of the fretboard, and then you just pivot your wrist. You can keep your thumb on the back if you like. So again, just like bending, you're not using your string or your finger to bend the string, you're actually using wrist motion. Again, your wrist is a lot stronger than your fingers are, so you want to use that. So if I didn't have my finger on the string, it would look something like this. I would just have my thumb on top here, my pivot set up for the bottom here, and then I would just kind of bring my finger back and forth across the fretboard, and that would produce the vibrato effect. You put your finger on the string then, and make sure you hold your finger rigid enough so that it actually pulls the string with it when you move your wrist. You just rock your wrist and you get that kind of sound. Like that. And you can, of course, get fast vibratos, slow vibratos with different fingers and such. And I'll have you try that in a minute. I'd like to play a song that uses lots of vibrato in it. It's the beginning of Wish You Were Here, the solo by Pink Floyd, and it goes something like this. Sounded nice on all of those held notes to put the vibrato in there just to make it a little more interesting. I'm just going to retune my guitar here for a second. I think the bending put that G string out slightly. Okay, great. So let's try this vibrato at home. We'll go up to the 5th position here. Put your first finger on the 5th fret of the 3rd string. Thumb on top here. And just hold your finger as rigid as you can and try and rock your wrist. Just like that. Let's try this at home. Try and get that slight bending kind of sound. A little harder on acoustic, but just do your best. With practice, you'll get it, as with anything. Now, let's try to vibrato the 6th fret on the same string. Now, all we do is just add this finger and use both fingers to vibrato. Called the pivot method, and you can see why. We're just pivoting our hand. And nice and slow, try to get that bending sound. And let's put the 3rd finger on there. And then we're going to vibrato the 7th fret. It's a little trickier with these fingers, but just keep working at it, it'll come. And then your little finger up to the 8th fret. Same motion, you're just using all your fingers. You can also vibrato upwards if you like. Whichever you prefer. Either or is fine. It would be good to actually practice both. Let's try the 1st string, 3rd position, and the 5th fret with our 3rd finger like this, and we'll try a vibrato there. Now we're going to have to vibrato upwards here, obviously, because otherwise we would go over the edge of the guitar. So you don't want to bend it too far. You don't want to change the pitch of the note. You just want to give it that wavering effect. So I'm just using my wrist there and rocking a bit. And that is the pivot method of vibrato. You'd like to practice that to just throw it in wherever you want and feel like putting it in. I've put a little lick together in the key of B using the major pentatonic scale. That uses vibrato, and as we learned in previous lessons, B major pentatonic is in 4th position, starting with our little finger on the 6th string, 7th fret, and it goes something like this. A little bit of a half step bend there too. Let's try that again. 3, 4. And I'll slow it down and we'll try this at home. Starting with the 4th string, 4th fret, and your first finger up to the 6th fret, to the 4th fret on the 3rd string, and we'll vibrato that. We'll hold that for a count of 3. Then we'll go back to the 4th string, 4th fret, 6th fret, bend the 6th fret on the 3rd string, a semitone, and then vibrato the 4th fret again. And a little quicker would be something like this. That was in B major pentatonic. If I wanted to play in C major pentatonic, of course, I'd just move up a fret and ends with a C, and that is vibrato in the pivot method. Let's move on to sliding. Now, sliding between notes or just sliding to single notes can give the solo a legato or smooth feel. For instance, if I was going back to A minor pentatonic here, and I was just going to play these 3 notes like this. And once more, this. And I wanted to make it a little more bluesy or play with a little more feel. I could slide into a couple of the notes like this. Makes it quite interesting rather than this. You have gives it a nice smooth feel. Now sliding is usually done between 1 and 4 frets. I like to usually use 2 frets as a base for my slide and go from there. And all you do is to slide is strike the first note and slide up to the second note. And the trick is to keep the second note ringing. Let's try that at home with your first finger on string 4, fret 3, and slide up 2 frets. And just try and keep that pressure on there. Takes a bit of practice so that you don't kill that second note before you get there. And then try sliding backwards. This is a little more trickier still. Now let's go up to the 2nd string and the 5th fret with your 3rd finger, and we're going to slide up 2 frets to the 5th fret. Now the difference here is when we get, after we slide up to that 2nd note, I want you to pick it again. That's sometimes an option you can use. When you slide to a note, you can pick it when you get there. It sounds something like this. Oops, let me try that again. Let's try this at home from the 5th fret with your 3rd finger to the 7th. And a song that uses sliding is the intro to Black Velvet by Alannah Myles. Let's play this through once. It uses an E minor pentatonic scale, and it has a nice bluesy sound like this. For Black Velvet by Alannah Myles. I'll just play the first little bit with the slides in a little slower just to give you an example of how that is used. There's a double slide there, just like that. And that slide was not using the option where you pick the note when you get to the new one. You just slide and hold them. Now in the transcripts I put together a little lick here in A minor pentatonic using slides, and it goes something like this. Like that. And that is an A minor pentatonic. Now I did a 3 fret slide there just because I'm sliding to the 8th fret, and the other note in the minor pentatonic is the 5th fret, so I might as well slide from one scale tone to another. Let's try that with your little finger. Slide up 3 frets. A little tricky to get to at first. Then play the 1st string 5th fret. Then skip down to your 1st finger on the 3rd string 7th fret and slide down to the 5th. And then play the 7th fret on string 4. That was like this. Quicker. Now, I'd like to give you a little bit of a word on why I used the fingerings that I did there for the slide. I used my little finger on this slide here from the 5th to the 8th, so when I got there, I'm still in A minor position, and I just have to play that note. That one's fairly obvious. Now, when I slide from the 7th fret on the 3rd string to the 5th, I skip to my 1st. That way, when I slide back, I'm right in position to play the next note. So I always try to slide into the scale I'm playing. If I did that slide with any other finger, for instance my 3rd, then I'm not in position to grab that note anymore. So you want to always be aware when you're sliding that you use the finger that will get you right back into the scale you're playing again. Let's try this at home once more, nice and slow. 5th fret to 8th, slide. Play the 1st string 5th fret. Take your 1st finger over to the 3rd string 7th fret, slide to the 5th, and 7th. And that was in A minor pentatonic. And of course, if you want to use that in G minor pentatonic, you would just play it in the position where the G pentatonic is and go. And that is sliding. The last technique I'd like to show you is something called double stops. And what double stops are is simply 2 notes played together. Something like that. Or. And they're used to add body or fullness to a solo, and can be played in many different combinations. In this show, I'm just going to show you double stops that can be played with one finger. Okay? Now we're going to have to depart from our proper technique playing for a little bit just to play these double stops, because obviously if you're on your fingertips, you're not going to be able to get both strings. So what you're trying to do is use the side of your finger a little bit and get your double stops. that way. This exercise that I did here is in the G Dorian mode, and let's try this. Take your first finger and lay it across the first and second strings at the 3rd fret. I like to try and touch the 3rd string with my finger here too, just to keep it quiet so it doesn't ring on. And play those 2 strings. Now for the next double stop, we're going to take our 3rd finger and lay it across the 5th fret, across the 2nd and 3rd strings. And again, I'm just touching the 4th string very lightly, muting it out so it doesn't sound. And then you play the 2nd and 3rd strings. Then down to the 2nd and 3rd strings on the 3rd fret with your 1st finger, following the same routines, and then ending with the note G here on the 4th string, 5th fret. So you get this kind of sound. It sounds very nice like that. And those are double stops. You can use them almost anywhere. And when you're playing double stops, one of the notes is the principal note, or the note that fits in the scale, and the other one is the harmony note, or secondary note. I'm going to go over, on all string combinations, what you can play along with your principal note to blend in for a double stop. For instance, if you're playing any note on the 1st string, no matter what scale you're in, no matter what mode you're in, if you're playing the note on the 1st string, you can play the one directly below it on the 2nd string. It should pretty well always fit. So if I did something like that, and I wanted to play a double stop for the first 2 notes, I would just go and then play single notes for the 2nd string. So let's try that. Let's say I was going to play as my principal note the 10th fret on the 1st string. What would be the note you would play for the secondary note or the harmony note? Be the one right below it on the 10th fret. And that would fit for key of D minor pentatonic. A little bit of a unison bend there, and that will always work. Now, I'm going to skip the 2nd string. I'm not going to show you any harmony notes for that one because they usually involve using a couple of fingers, which I don't want to cover in this show. So let's go down to the 3rd string. Now, if let's say we're in A minor pentatonic and you wanted to play a double stop with one of these 2 notes being your principal note, you can either go to the one directly below it, that is, you would play the 2nd and 3rd string together, that being the principal note, or you could go the other way and go up to the 4th string, depending on the style you want. Let's say I was going to play in a key of A minor pentatonic, and I was going to go from the root to the 3rd note here and back to the root, and I wanted to play this note here as a double stop. I could either use the 2nd and 3rd strings, give them a little bit of a bend, you get that nice bluesy sound, or you could use the 3rd and 4th strings, which is a little more solid sounding, a little more rock sounding. Okay, so you have that choice. Whenever your note is on the 3rd string and you want to play a double stop, you can either play the 2nd string along with the 3rd or the 4th string along with the 3rd. Now, when the principal note is on the 4th string, you would use the 5th string as the secondary note. For instance, an A minor pentatonic. If I was going to end on my root note there and hold that, I could do a double stop with the 5th string. Just like that. Let's try this at home. That's an A minor pentatonic. Just run up the scale. And then instead of just playing that note by itself, do a double stop. And that's the combinations for the 4th string as your principal note. And last but not least, when you're playing the 5th string and you want to play a double stop, you play again straight below it on the 6th string. So, a nice low growly sound that's used in a lot of songs these days. So we're in the key of A minor. You're going to play a double stop. Below that note, you just lay the finger flat again. Now, a good exercise just to, that's fairly simple anyways, but to get that really down and memorize it is to try and play one of your pentatonic scales, either major or minor, and then anywhere you can play a double stop, play one. And it would sound something like this. Let me go to a G minor pentatonic, which would be this scale right here. Now, starting on the 6th string, there's no double stops to play yet that could be played with the 1st finger, so we'll just play those 2 by themselves. Now, when you go up to the 5th string, 3rd fret, we would play the 5th and 6th strings together, and then up to the 5th fret, same thing. So you get that. Now, next we would go up to the 4th string, which would be on the 3rd and 5th frets, and we would play, of course, the 5th and 4th strings together. And to the 3rd string, the same thing. So for those double stops, our principal notes were there. Or you could have done the 2nd and 3rd strings. And when we get to the 2nd string, we'll play those notes by themselves, single notes, because I did not give you any double stops for those 2. And then to the 1st string, we play the double stops between 1st and 2nd. So that would make this scale sound like this. Or miss that 2nd string. Just to get you used to doing those things. Then whenever you're doing a single note little solo, throw those in whenever you like. So they're fairly simple to use. Now in the transcripts I've put together a few exercises that kind of cover everything we've done so far, a couple of different scales and using all these slides, bends, vibratos, etc. And the first one is just the first couple of bars from Johnny B. Goode. I did this in the key of A, and it sounds something like this. It's kind of a very popular lick. That is in the key of A pentatonic. Now it features something we haven't done quite yet. It's a double stop slide. So you're just sliding a double stop. That's not too bad. I'll walk you through this lick fairly slowly. Starting on the 4th fret with your 2nd finger, slide it up 2 frets to the 6th fret. Play the 2nd string 5th fret, 2nd string 7th fret. Now, lay your finger flat for a double stop on the 4th fret and slide, and then play it twice more, and once more. And let's try that once more at home, nice and slow. Slide 4 to 6 on string 3, your 2nd finger, 5th fret, 2nd string, and then the double stop slide. That you speed that up. It sounds something like that, and if you wanted to play that in the key of G and kind of make up your own riff, you would just, of course, play in the minor pentatonic position and slide 2nd to 4th. And just move that around accordingly. And another little lick I put together is in the key of A major pentatonic, and it sounds something like this. Used in that one was a double stop, with that being my principal note there, and a double stop slide into the 2nd fret, 5th fret by itself on the 2nd string and slide into the 2nd fret, and vibrato that one. Go over to string 4 and hammer on from the 2nd fret to the 4th. This is something I ran over in episode number 4, was hammer-ons. Then go to the 3rd string 2nd fret, a ghost bend of a whole tone on the 4th fret, and then vibrato the 2nd fret. It sounds neat when you put that all together. And I'll run you through that once more. Double stop on the 5th fret with your little finger, slide into the 2nd, 5th fret, 2nd string by itself, slide into the 2nd, Hammer on 2nd fret to 4th on string 4. And ghost, bend, and release. Didn't quite get a whole tone there, but we'll live with that. And that's kind of a neat little lick in A major pentatonic. And of course, you want to move it to B major pentatonic. You would just move it up 2 frets to where the B is. You get that kind of sound in the key of B. I'm just going to quick tune my G string there. You might want to tune yours at home also. Just give you a second for that. And a lick in minor pentatonic in the key of A, minor, would go something like this. Bend, release on the 8th fret, and then double stop on the 5th fret, and then a double stop pull off. It's like that. I'm going to run through that a couple of times slow. I think we're running out of time, so we'll just try it once slowly. On the 8th fret, bend, release. And then bend again, full tone bend. This is kind of like a unison bend, and then a double stop on the 5th fret, strings 1 and 2. Now with your 4th finger, cover strings 1 and 2 at the 8th fret, play them together, and pull them both off, and then play that again. Then vibrato, the 3rd string, 5th fret, and the 7th fret, so you get that kind of neat little lick in the A minor pentatonic, utilizing all the tricks that we've learned so far. Now, if you'd like a transcript for tonight's show, please send a check or money order for